Guys, welcome back. I got a special guest, and I'm actually super excited for this one. We got Dave Seymour, and successful in a lot of different areas, all the way from like flipping Boston on TV show to being a firefighter before that, and that transition into now I know you're doing large apartments and syndications and that sort of thing. So we can dive into all of that. But first off, let's share your story, introduce yourself, and let's get rolling, man. You got lots of stuff to share.
That's it. You said it all. I'm done. You took all my thunder, Dave Knight. You took it all in one go right there. Look, long story short, and I'll keep it succinct, but I'm an immigrant to the United States, man. I'm an immigrant. Don't tell anybody. You know?
No, I can't tell.
They couldn't build a wall big enough for me to climb over. You know what I mean? But I was born in London, England, and I immigrated back in 1986. My first wife was an American. I met her in London. I'd love to tell you I came to America because, you know, I wanted to be the entrepreneur that I am today. The truth of the matter is, you know, she was my girlfriend and her visa ran out. And I was in lust. You know what I mean? I'm 19 years old.
You're following her wherever she goes.
That's right.
Yeah.
So I ended up coming to the States, and I moved around quite a bit. I originally was processed for the Air Force, United States Air Force. My first wife's brother-in-law was stationed at Pease Air Force Base. So I was kind of like following in his footsteps. I remember the recruiters, right? I don't know if any of your listeners have a military background. I'm sure they do. But I remember listening to the recruiters, and there was the Marines and there was the Air Force, right? And the Air Force said to me I could be a firefighter or a cop in the Air Force. And I'm like, yeah, I like that idea. I like camaraderie. I like teamwork. I'm all about it. A little bit crazy around the edges, you know, going in a contrarian direction. The Marines were like knocking on my door. They're like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm going in the Air Force. You don't want to go with those guys. You want to come with us. I guess they got like a spiff if they sign people up or something. The Marine said to me, he said, you can't be a cop. You can't be a firefighter in the military. I'm like, that the Air Force said I could. He goes, he's lying. I go, he can't lie. He's a military. They got to tell the truth. So I get to Pittsburgh, and I'm about to sign on the line. And the guy says to me, you're I-551 alien status. I go, what? He goes, you're not a naturalized citizen yet. You haven't been here long enough. You've only been married a year. You got to be married 3 years. He says, you can't be a cop or a firefighter. It's classified. I'm like, what do you mean classified? The guy said I could. He said, I don't know what he told you. He said, you could paperwork. So I never did join the military. So look, anyway, I ended up in New England, up in the Boston market. I was living in a city called Lynn, Massachusetts. Otherwise known as Lynn, the city of sin. You never come out the way you went in.
It sounds like a good time.
Yeah, it was the original Las Vegas before Vegas was Vegas. Lynn was a tough town, man. I mean, we had the suburbia around it was pretty wealthy and affluent, but the downtown population, large, like back in the day, it was the shoe capital of the world. Lynn, Massachusetts is where all the shoe factories were. So the periphery was like the shoe factory owners. And then all the downtown population, what we call three-deckers in Boston, 3 family properties, 4 family properties. And they were, you know, Hispanic neighborhoods, African-American neighborhoods, Irish neighborhoods, Polish neighborhoods. And that was it. It was that drive of working class. So that kind of dispersed over the years. And now you had a lot of landlords that were basically slum landlords. So the city of Lynn itself, you know, really took a beating through the 60s, 70s, and 80s. That was where I lived. And I remember I was going around and I'm trying to figure out what I want to be when I grow up. And I was always a worker. I was never afraid of work. I was good with my hands and my back. I wasn't necessarily so good with my financial IQ. You know what I mean? It's funny. I remember telling my dad back in England, and I'm on the phone with him one day, and I said to him, I said, you're not going to believe this, Dad. He goes, well, what's that, boy? I said, over here in America, they give you these credit cards, Dad. Like these little plastic banks. And then they don't stop you from spending more money than you earn. And he's like, what? I said, yeah, it's great being an American, Dad. You should come over. Like,
free money.
Free money.
Yeah.
And you don't go to jail if you don't pay your bills back. You get a mulligan. It's called, you know, I'm sorry. My credit score's 2. Who cares, right? You know?
Yeah.
So anyway, I found myself in a pretty rough situation. Early 90s. I spent money keeping up with the Joneses. I didn't understand debt. I didn't understand leverage. I didn't understand anything in finance.
Were you a firefighter at this point already, or not yet? Okay.
Yeah. That's the early 90s, right? So I
Okay.
came over in 86, and in the early 90s, I've got this bug that, you can spend. I felt like a kid in a candy store. I'm 23, 24 years old in a
Yeah.
foreign country,
Not
you
knowing.
know?
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
not knowing. I got no foundation in finance. I don't know anything. But anyway, I go through those processes, and then a buddy of mine, Ray Krajewski, worked on Salem, which city? Salem, Massachusetts. He was on the fire department there. And he says to me, why don't you try for the fire department? I said, look, dude, I said, I've only ever wanted to be a cop. I said, I love the idea of being the knight in shining armor. I like the adrenaline. I said, there's a bad guy inside of me, kind of, I said, you got to be a little bit of a bad guy to be a good cop. We all know that. I don't care what anybody says. Right? You got to be able to. I'd worked in the sheriff's department, in the jails. So I knew how to carry myself in that community without compromising my morals or anything else. So
You can't be too naive. Exactly.
right,
Yeah.
right. That's what it is. Look, man, you know this as well as anybody else who maybe listens. There's book smart and then there's street smart. I'd much rather stand next to street smart than book smart anytime, right?
Hell yeah.
The guy says, we try out for the fire department. This was in 96. I said, look, man, I said, I just got back from Miami, Fort Lauderdale, and there was one other town that I processed, sheriff's departments that I processed with down in Florida. I said, I'm pretty confident I'm going to get a call from them. He goes, just try. So I take the state exam in Massachusetts to be a firefighter in the city of Lynn where I worked. And as I told you, it was an aggressive town, right? A lot of fires, a lot of drugs, alcohol, shootings, blue team, red team, all of the shit, right? We're right in the middle of it, which is where I want to be if I'm doing anything. I said, no, police is what I want to do. I'm a naturalized citizen now, so I can do the job. It's funny, on the day that I get the card in the mail that I've been accepted to the fire department to get sworn in, I get a card in the mail from Miami PD. I'm looking at these two cards and I go, do I want to go be Don Johnson and move all the way down the coast? Or do I want to, work in the fire department? I took the fire department route. And there are absolutely no regrets, brother. None at all. I mean, fire service, first responder, like as soon as I could get in there, I got my EMT ticket. Then the fire department took over the ambulance service, the advanced ambulance service. I'm the first guy to sign up for medic school. And I loved it. I freaking loved it. The challenge was I brought my lack of financial IQ with me. So I don't know if you relate to this, but for me, it was, I worked 48 hours in the fire department, praying that the phone would ring to get a $200 overtime shift, right? Right? Praying that you're the next one up on the union list so I can get an overtime. 48 hours in the fire department, overtime when I could take it. I worked construction on my days off. I ran a small construction company, me and a couple of other guys from the fire department. And then nights and weekends, I'm a special police officer working details in retail security, right? I clocked it up. I was doing about 120 hours a week.
Wow.
Trading time for money because of lack of financial intelligence, because I'm over leveraged.
What helped you kind of transition then, I guess? Because like a lot of us, all we know is just exchanging time for money. And actually that was the pivotal point for myself. I remember one time working overtime shift, it was like minus 15, 20. It was like a crazy brutal night. And I'm sitting outside on a point and I'm saying, what the hell am I doing? Like, am I going to have to be doing this just to get ahead? Like, there's got to be a better way. And then I kind of relate to your story because I have heard a couple other podcasts you've been on, and you said that pivotal point for you was going to an actual, seminar. So talk about that pivot of mindset that really changed the trajectory for you.
You know what's interesting? Change happens a number of different ways, right? Some people, they aspire into change. Some people, it's through osmosis. The influences around them create change. And then there's a big old donkey like me. Like, I'm a stubborn mother, right? I'm the guy you say go through the wall. I'm going through the wall. If I can't go through it, I'm going over it. I'm going around it. I'll achieve whatever the objective is. And for me, I was beaten. I was a beaten man. I was beaten into submission. Like, I could not trade one more time of my life for anybody else's money. It cost me 2 marriages. It almost cost me my primary residence. Worse than that, it almost cost me a relationship with my now 27-year-old son, who back then was, 8, 10 years old. The price that I was paying for financial ignorance was just going up and up and up. And I'm screaming and shouting at my God. And I'm like, dude, I don't lie, don't cheat, don't steal. I trade time for money. I'm a man among men. I'm a worker among workers. This sucks.
Yeah,
I'm
what's
in
going on
America,
here?
right? It's supposed to be my American dream. Fucking American nightmare. You might have to bleep that out. So that was it. That was the moment. And there was a commercial on the radio, and it was for one of those touring seminar companies teaching real estate. And I had known that there was money in real estate back then. I knew it because there were investors that were coming to my job sites where I was digging ditches, in January. Check this one out. January, on an auger, me and 3 Spanish dudes on a 4-man auger, right? Trying to get down to below the frost level in January in Boston. You're up in Canada. It gets warm. And we're all spinning around. It's like a freaking cartoon, right? And I'm like, this ain't right. And my hands are cold. My feet are cold. My iced coffee is a popsicle. I'm like, I'm done with this. I'm done. I can't do it anymore. And I surrendered to win is the phrase that I use, because it was at that time in my life that, I allowed something, a force into my life to give me direction instead of it all being my decision. And I went to the event, to a seminar, and I began to hear things I'd never heard before, Dave. My old man didn't, some guy said to me, debt is good. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Debt is good, right?
Totally.
He said, leverage, use other people's money. I said, who the hell's going to give me money? I got a credit score of 3. My FICO was like 3. You know what I mean? That was where it started. And I learned, and I went after it the same way we fight a fire, the same way you go through a door. You don't go through a door with hesitation. You don't mask up, drop down on your knees and go in a burning structure with hesitation. If you do, somebody's going to freaking die, right? So that's how I went after my real estate career. The same way I learned how to fight fires and be a medic was to be trained, proficient, team, execute. Train, proficient, team, execute. It served me well. Here's what I pray for anybody who wants financial freedom, right? I pray that one day they have to retire from the fire department or the police department or whatever public capacity they're in. They have to retire because it costs them way too much money to go to work. And then for the love of the job, just do it because you love it. Don't do it because you have to do it for finances. And 16 years into my career, that's where I ended up, where it cost me way too much money to go to work.
Where did you start then? I mean, obviously you're at a position where you got no money, you're working your balls off, and maybe your credit's horrible. So where did you start?
If you haven't figured it out, listening to me right now, if we ever sit down and shoot the shit, you'll figure it out. I talk, right? I talk, I present, I'm on, right? I'm on. And what I did was I really went through a change of personality. With the change comes with the education, right? You got to know what the hell you're talking about. You can't bullshit it. So I just practiced going to as many RIA groups as I could, get in front of as many investors as I could, having conversations like this, like the conversation we had before this, the conversations we're going to have after this. Like I'm really committed to them. The same way I committed to anything that I did, I went all in. And it allowed me to be in a position where people began to understand my underwriting when I was doing, a distressed single family assets. I started in 2008, and we know what happened in the market in 2008. If you're a real estate investor, you might as well have said I got cancer. You know what I'm saying? I became known as one of the top distressed asset investors in the state of Massachusetts. The Attorney General's office reached out to me and my company and said, we want you to come into our abandoned housing initiative. We want you to take these properties, fix them back up, and get them back on the market. So how good is that for your credibility that you're now standing with the Attorney General's office as one of their arms of execution in the real estate marketplace? But it started with one wholesale deal. I know it's tough to wholesale real estate up in Canada, but down here we got a little more flexibility in our contractual law. But if you do it right, you do it with integrity, it works. I got to help people. I learned short sales, help people in workouts. Other businesses then started coming to us and saying, hey, what are you doing? I want to do that with you. Can I learn from you? And next thing I know, I'm on a national freaking TV show. So that was kind of like the journey of it.
Okay, I definitely want to talk about flipping Boston because that's like a huge one for sure. Just paint a picture, like when you're working in fire, and rather than putting all your time into overtime and exchanging time for money, you pivoted that because you got educated and started flipping homes, wholesaling, and all that space of us real estate. So it's like, were you working full time, and what kind of volume were you doing while you were still working as a firefighter?
Yeah, great question. So first of all, as firefighters, we get downtime. And back then we also used to work 4 on, 4 off, 2 days, 2 nights, 4 days off, which gave me 6 days. So don't ever tell me we don't have time. Even in the police department, it's still 4 on, 2 off, or 24s, whatever cops are working these days. So there's always time to build a career, right? What is it? Invest in a job and you've got a paycheck for life. Invest in yourself, you got financial freedom, right? So
100%.
For me, it was I could work from the firehouse because we had a phone. I'd build relationships with realtors. I'd build relationships with other investors. I'd set up appointments to go look at as many properties as I could on my days off. I'd get up early in the morning, 4 or 5 o'clock, take my classes, whatever it was that I was focused on at that moment in time. We were doing it all online. I did a shit ton of personal development to fix my head. And I don't know if you experienced this. I'm sure you have, and some of your listeners have. My boys in the FD started looking at me like, who do you think you are? Right? What are you, a real estate guy? No, you're not. You're a medic. You're Dave. You're the cook. You're this, you're that. Like everybody else pigeonholed me. So I needed to fix that and create something else for myself. And I did a lot of personal development stuff. So anyway, sidebar. So, my volume was, I'd say maybe 2-3 wholesale transactions a month I'd shoot for. And they could be anywhere between 3 and 15 grand. And then once there's a little bit of capital coming in, now you can play a little bit, right? You got a little bit of play money. One of my first private loans was from a lieutenant in the fire department, Mikey. Yeah, he ran an electrical business on the side. I'm like, Mikey, I need 35 grand for the construction on this property. I said, I'll give you back your 35 grand in 3 weeks, plus 5 grand in juice. I didn't have contracts or nothing like that. I'm like just trying to figure it out. And he's like, yeah, I'll do that. And I knew that I could get his money back in 2 weeks, I think it was. And I said to him, Mikey, your money's at the attorney's office. Go pick up your check. He said, I thought you said it was 3 weeks. I said, you can wait another week to pick it up if you want, or you can go get it now. It's up to you, right? So over deliver. I learned to over deliver on everything that I do. Under promise, over deliver. So, 2-3 wholesale transactions, then get into flipping. Now in flipping, the check a little chunkier, they take a little bit longer. You got to have a good contracting background. You got to have a team. I was blessed. I knew guys. I knew how to talk to guys on a construction site. I never went in with ego. Ego stands for ease God out, EGO,
So you had your own team. You had a team going out, general contractors. You weren't actually on your days off lifting the hammer and doing all the work, or were you doing all that? Were you doing? Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I did that as well. Look, man, I did everything I needed to do to make sure that the end product was as good as it could possibly be. I had a Tyler come to my primary residence, rip out a pan and put a new pan in because the shower was leaking. I'm looking at him and I'm thinking, I miss being on my knees tiling. I miss the smells. I miss the camaraderie. I miss the coffee breaks. I miss the bullshit. I don't miss the pain, right? I don't miss the pain. I don't miss carrying, those 50-pound bags of cement up 3 flights. I don't miss any of that. I did the work. And what was important for me is doing the work allowed me to be in a position of knowing what was right. I had quality control inside of me. I knew what a good job and what a bad job was. So I did some of that. And then as time built and I could step away from it, I stepped away and built smaller teams to do multiple projects, to be able to buy, fix, and flip, and then buy and hold. Then get your first 2-family property. And then all of a sudden, somebody else is going to work, paying your mortgage, and there's a little bit of money left over for me. Are you shitting me? Now the American dream's beginning to work, right?
Yeah, that's the financial education.
Right? That's it. So if I can do it with 2 units, I wonder if I could do it with 20 units. Yes. And built portfolios over the years, right? And just learned the business. And it's been a natural progression. I don't know about you, brother. I'm the kind of guy who gets bored really quickly. You know what I mean? Like,
yep.
So you flip a house, you make 100 grand, whatever, right? Doesn't
What's
get my
next?
heart rate up, right? What's next?
Yeah.
And that was the trajectory of my career.
I love it. So how did you transition into the whole flipping Boston? Like, how did that even come about? Were you just known for all your flipping and still working at the same time? Or were you already full-time investing?
It was funny, man. I was in that education space as a primo student. My head popped up above the crowd and the people who were educating me noticed. And they invited me in to do a little bit of training. I was an MC at a lot of these multi-speaker events, and I did some coaching and stuff. And it was early in my career. I wasn't financially free, but I could report the success of the people who taught me. And I could do it in authenticity. I didn't have to lie. I didn't have to make shit up. That group of info marketers, real estate gurus, all of those Fan Merrill fortune builders. I knew Fan when he was, selling Real Flow in a box for $1,000. You know what I mean? As he was building his company in his education space. And those guys, somebody sent me a link. It was the guy who does ClickFunnels. What the hell's his name? Russell Brunson.
Russell Brunson, yeah.
Yeah, Russ Brunson sent out an email to our little group because we were all starting back then. He's like, D, you should go test for this real estate show they're doing. He said, you're a funny bastard, firefighter, English background. You should try it. I'm like, what are you talking about? Anyway, I sent in an online application and I loaded it with profanity. Because I knew, right? I knew that it's marketing, man. I got to separate myself from everybody who wants their 10 minutes of fame. And that's how it started. They came to Boston. They shot a little demo with me. I actually called Pete, who was my partner on the show. We didn't really have a solid business. We kind of knew each other. I said, I'm putting you on a national TV show. Come on. You're going to be the Greek guy designer with the money. He goes, what? What are you talking about? And I'm like, come on, man. We're just there for shits and giggles. Nobody's going to pick up a show with a couple of clowns like us in it. Next thing you know, we got 4 seasons, 29 episodes, and national recognition. So that's how it started.
That's amazing. What year was that you started that?
We probably started filming 2010, 11.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
The market was still shit, man. I mean, the first episodes we did, the intro was, everybody knows that the real estate market is in the crapper, right? We go out and get stuff done. Blah, blah, blah. Like that was the intro to it. And then, over a 4.5, 5-year run, the market turned, the messaging changed, checks got bigger on the back end. But here's what it did, Dave. It gave me national recognition, right? If you go to any seminar, they say, write a book. Well, why do I want to write a book? Because now you're an expert because you wrote a book. Doesn't matter what you write in it. You're an expert because you got a book, right?
Right.
So for me, I got that expert status. I'm on the Today Show. I'm doing Rachel Ray. That doesn't sound right. I didn't do Rachel Ray. I was on the Rachel Ray show.
Yeah.
Okay, just clarify. You get that national exposure. Opened doors for me that I think a lot of other people might have had a challenge getting through those doors, or at least knocking on that door. Money started coming towards us instead of away from us. It was easier to raise capital and find deals. Then nationally, because a national TV show, you get that national exposure that comes with it. And it was all
big time
positive. Yeah, it was good. It was great. I enjoyed it.
And that's essentially like evolved into what you're doing now. So what are you doing? Like, I know you're into large apartments, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, the past 5 years have been interesting. We kind of wound down flipping Boston. My partner and I separated after the TV show ran its course. Then it's like you step back and, what I want to do. And I always knew that I wanted to either be the bank, be in cash flow, some kind of cash flow, some business that brought money towards me, rather than, because if you look at flipping a house, it's still a freaking job, right? It's still a job. If you don't flip the house, you don't make the money. You don't wholesale the contract, you don't make the money. I went through a couple of transitional periods, a couple of things that we did. I had a hard money lending business. We were working on a $50 million line of credit. And then COVID kind of shut us down pretty quick because the loans were no longer getting purchased by the banks in New York. So I lost the exit strategy or the arbitrage of the loans that we originated. And it was at that time that I reconnected with my partner, Walter Novicki. Walter's a couple of years older than me. He's ex-Special Forces, been in real estate since 1986, down in the Florida marketplace. He's got probably $300 million in private equity raised throughout his career, deployed that money, paid back the returns, never missed distributions, ground up developments, large apartments, existing structures, just had all of that infrastructure in place. And when COVID hit, we connected, a couple of like old war horses. What do you see next? And he's like, look, man, he said, we could do onesies, twosies on the syndication side, 50 to 150 units at a time. That's doable. He said, we go all in. He said, let's do the 100% commitment, right? Objective and execution. He said, we could raise $100 million private equity fund. He said, instead of buying one, let's buy them all. And that's what we did. We went out and put together a private placement memorandum. It's a 506C Reg D fund, which allows us to market, get the message out there. We leveraged the guy from the TV show and put that fund in place. We're just about to close that fund down. The raise is now over. We got a couple of other single funds coming off of that. But today we're in the multifamily business. We syndicate those deals. We put the debt in place, the bank money. 70% of the loan to value. That other 30% is what's called the LP position. That LP position is a structure between accredited investors, smaller institutional investors, and then we sit in the deals in a GP position. The money that rushed into Florida as COVID hit compressed the cap rates, which is your rate of return in commercial real estate. When I say compress them, we used to be able to buy something at a 6% return, increase its income, its NOI, and make it an 8 or a 10 or a 12% return to investors. Well, because everything got so much more expensive because of this huge amount of free money that came into the market, we looked back and we said, holy shit, what do we do now? I'm not going to buy like my competitors do, buy at a 3% return and tell you, Dave, don't worry about it. I know it's only 3% right now. Give me $500,000. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to work that over 10 years, maybe 12 years. And I'm going to push the rents up over that 12-year period of time. And then I'll be able to give you a 6% return. What do you think? I'm not playing that game.
I think I know who you're talking about on that situation.
I don't drive, so I can't sleep at night with that being my business model. So how do you find yield, right? How do you create opportunities? Step back again, you look at the landscape, you use your experience. And what we began to find out was there was a massive influx of population to Florida. Millennials, retirees. Out of the top 10 places to retire in the United States of America, according to USA News, 8 out of the 10 are in Florida. 3 of the top 5 are in my market: Fort Myers, Cape Coral, Sarasota. So you look at that data and you go, well, where are they all going? Well, they don't want these little single family houses scattered all over the place that have been badly rehabbed. The average single family owner in Florida has about 15 houses built in the 70s in various states of repair. Not a quality product for the tenants that I want to attract. So we opened up our acquisitions team to start looking for land opportunities where we can do what's called a build for rent single family communities. So what that allows me to do is, my pipeline right now, I got 48 acres on deck to build 268 single family homes in communities. So think of those really nice gated communities in Florida.
Yep.
Swimming pool, walking trails, clubhouse. We'll build those. The occupancy is tenants, millennials, retirees. It's called builders by choice, not renters by need. They're renters by choice. So that marketplace has just opened up massive, massive opportunities for us. We start scraping dirt on a 106 unit multifamily build at the end of this year in Cape Vista, which is in Cape Coral. It's the name of the building. And then our headquarters, just off of McGregor Boulevard in Fort Myers, we start building that at the end of the year as well. That's a commercial building. It's going to be 16,500 square feet. The international headquarters of Freedom Venture Investments. So that's what we're doing today. I'm in finance, brother. I'm in finance today. I just raised millions of dollars and put it to work with a decent yield. Imagine that.
I love the transition, man. Like, where you were, you started in the wholesale, the flipping, the TV show to now, larger commercial and multifamilies. So you have single family, the communities, and then you're doing the multifamily as well and the commercial.
We're building those as well, yeah. When the moment is right and the opportunity is right to buy an existing multifamily, we'll buy it. I just picked one up and closed on it a couple of weeks ago. Smaller deal in West Palm Beach, raised $2 million to buy it, 100% rehabbed at the time of acquisition. We step in now, lease it up. In 1 year, based off of the NOI for this one asset, it'll go from a $2 million raise on the buy side and a $3.5 million valuation in 1 year just in leasing it up and putting the tenant base in place. So,
amazing.
I don't mind doing a deal like that, right? $1.5 million in 1 year. And then my investors get a fantastic rate of return. We as the GP, we walk away with maybe a $400,000 or $500,000 paycheck a year out, a little bit of cash flow while we're managing it as we're going along. So,
amazing.
We do the ones that make sense without squeezing the deal, right?
Love it.
The deal looking for yield.
One last quick question on that specifically, and then I'm going to ask you what you would suggest for first responders just getting started. So first, how do you even find acreage like that in such a hot market?
Yeah, a great question. So Walter, that described to you, my partner, he's the Yoda, he's the wizard behind the curtain, whatever picture you want to put in your head. When you've been in one market working consistently for almost 25, 30 years, we call it a pocket listing in real estate, right? He's getting the first phone call. So that's how our acquisition team has been working with Walter for decades down there. And he's one of the top 3 or 4 guys to get the phone call. So, you're not going to get that coming out of your first seminar. You got to put in the work, right? You don't become a lieutenant or a captain first day you graduate boot camp. It doesn't work that way either, right? So that's the secret sauce.
And it's just the evolution of being financially literate and educate, and the experience over time. It's like transitioning where the trends are going and seeing, what's happening is obviously a whole other, discussion too.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool.
Yeah.
So dialing it down, man, like people are on the road, they're just listening to podcasts, YouTube University, whatever. My whole message to a lot of people is don't rely on pensions alone, because there's a lot of change going on right now. There's a lot of issues, as you know, in your own backyard that has happened over the years. Up here in Canada, we're a little bit more relaxed and take it for granted because we haven't seen that disaster happen here yet. Maybe just give us a 2-minute spiel on what you think first responders should do to learn about real estate and maybe not rely on something as a pension.
That's so good, because I got divorced while I was in the fire department. When I got divorced in the fire department in the great state of Massachusetts, where I am, my pension immediately, 50% of it is ripped out and goes to my ex-wife, right? And she put up with me for all those years. I'm not grumbling. But what I learned around pensions was is that as I became financially literate, I realized that the pension system, 401ks, even government pensions, all of the programs that we have down here in the States, they work if all you want to do is get by in your retirement, right? If that's all you want. 10 grand a month puts you in a happy place, then good for you. Go for it, right? And allow the money managers to make money on your money every single freaking day, whether you know it or not. Hidden fees inside pension plans. Like when I began to get educated on it, I wanted to go back and just punch out the mothers who signed me up and told me X, Y, Z. And here's the other part of it too. I mean this with respect, so please don't anybody take it as a disrespect. I say it to reinforce my own journey. There are sheep, right? There are leaders, and then there are followers. And everybody else is doing this, so it must be the right thing to do, right? It's that community mindset. Well, the wolves in the pack, they'll prey on that mindset, man. They know how to manipulate it, right? The bank offerings, certificates of deposit at 0 point, kiss my ass, and they still go down and put their money in a CD, right? So I looked at that. I took my pension when I retired because it cost me too much to go to work. And it wasn't a lot of money after 16 years. There was maybe 130,000 in there. I took that, rolled it over into a self-directed IRA, individual retirement account. Self-directed meaning I made all the financial decisions with that money from that point on. If I lost it all, it was on me. If I worked it on the rule of 72, right? The return that we get on our money times 72 is how long it takes for your money to double. So if you're getting a 1% return on your money, it's going to take 72 years for it to double. How about you, brother? I don't have 72 years left. So I was able to take my city pension inside of my real estate education, and I bought real estate that cash flowed, and I sold it, and I got a big profit. And I became a hard money lender, and I lent to other investors, and I turned my money and I got profit. If I look at the account over those years, I probably turned that capital 3.5, 4 times in the past 10 years. So amazing. I love that rate of return. You can't get that sitting on your ass in a recliner, watching the Blackhawks play the Bruins. You're not going to get it. You might get it, right? Instead of doing that, you sit on your computer and you learn and you educate and you continue the process of moving in that direction towards financial literacy rather than I was a financial illiteracy. That's my best advice. Here's the funny thing, right? One of the guys I got on with, Sully, now a district chief in the fire department, Skipper. Skip and I still get together every now and again. And he looks at me and he goes, I don't know how you do it. I go, what do you mean, Skip? He goes, everything you did was so risky. And I look at him and I go, Skip, it's just DNA. It's not right or wrong. It's not moral. It's not good or bad. Skip's a district chief in a department of probably 200 guys. You know, he has his own crew and platoon that he manages. He's the second in command in the fire department. Probably earns 180 grand a year, 200 a year. And he's happy. That's his life. And he's committed to that. And that's great. I can make more than that on one real estate transaction in 30 days. And that's not mine's bigger than his. It's not, it's different. That's all. Are you content? If you're not content, if you look around and you say, is this all there is? Is it softball on a Friday night? Is it hockey on a Sunday? Is it a couple of beers with the guys and talk about who's cheating on whose wife, right? If that's what it's all about and you're happy, go for it. You know, tell your stories and live your life. I got beat up morally, spiritually, physically, mentally, emotionally. I was beat up and I was sick and tired of being sick and tired, which was my motivation to do something different. So I don't want to sound soapboxy, but again, man, there's no right or wrong. You know what I mean? It's just choice.
Hey man, it's your intention of what you want and what you strive for. Everyone's got their own different ambitions and comfort level, like you said. So I mean, you hit it on the head. So it's just if you want more, you got to take that effort and learn, right? Otherwise, you can't complain. So I love that, man. Cool. Well, I appreciate everything that you've been talking about, man. You hear, wealth of knowledge. I love your story, and I know we're going to connect even after this. I'm grateful to finally meet you, and I'm sure a lot of people get a lot of takeaways from this. So if they want to reach out to you, what's a quick contact?
I'm old school, man. You can get info from us by picking up the phone, 781-922-4418. You can find educational stuff and also our offerings and our company at freedomventure.com or GTS. Just Google that shit. Find my name. You'll be able to track me down. LinkedIn's really good for business. So just track me down. Dave Seymour, Seymour.
Cool. And go check out his shows on YouTube. They're pretty funny.
You know what? If you got Amazon Prime,
I got Amazon Prime.
Just Google Flipping Boston, brother. Start at the beginning, get all the way to the end.
I was telling you, I got to figure out what the hell I'm doing. I got approached for that little mini series, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks again. Appreciate it. And we'll be in touch.